So let's actually start by opening up our OneDrive. And inside our folder for GRC53, let's create a project folder for today. And then this is just GRC53 and then the year, the month, and the day. Now in After Effects, we're going to create a new composition. Just click on the New Comp button, or you can hit Command N. And we're going to name our composition today's lecture project. So it's going to be GRC53, all lowercase. Let me zoom in on this so you can see. Hopefully that's better. GRC53 underscore 250903 underscore your last name underscore first initial underscore LECT. Now the reason we're naming the comp as thusly is so that when we export this or render the file out, we're going to render that composition out and it will name the file for us automatically. So we're kind of doing this on the front end. But you don't have to. You can call it main if you want, and then just make sure that when you save the file, you save it with the correct name, and then export the file, you export with the right name. This just saves us the step when we're rendering out. And then the preset HD is our default. We'll leave that. And our duration right here, it's set for 10 seconds. Hold on, let me scooch down. It's set for 10 seconds. We're going to change that to 05. We're going to go 5 seconds. And then click OK. Now we haven't done settings yet in After Effects, but there are a lot of default settings that are set when you first install the program. Sometimes if your program is getting wonky, tech support that you might find online will say like dump your preferences file, and there's a couple of keys that you hit when you launch After Effects. It wipes out all of your settings. Doesn't erase your programs or anything, but it just sets the settings back to the default because sometimes that preferences file gets corrupt. I've never had to do that, but that's usually what they tell you when there's some kind of an issue to try out. But we're going to click on the word After Effects up in our menu at the top there, and we're going to choose Settings and then General. And again, this is our preferences where we can set things like defaults for default activity. And under General, we're looking for default spatial interpolation to linear. That should have a check mark next to it. So that one right there. If it doesn't have a check mark, be sure and check that. Default spatial interpolation to linear. And then click OK. All right, we're going to use a new tool. We're going to create a shape. And that's this little icon up here. Just like with the other Adobe programs, if there's a little triangle in the lower right-hand corner, that means that if you long press on this, you get a flyout menu, and there are other things that you can choose, but we're going to go with the rectangle tool for right now because we want to see, we're going to look at angular momentum or angular motion as well, so we want to see the corners turn. So make sure rectangle is selected. It should be by default. And then just watch me first. I'm going to click and drag. And as I click and drag, don't do it yet. See how I can get a rectangle, right? Or I can do a rectangle like this, but I want a square. So in order to do a square, it's kind of wonky, but in After Effects, you have to start drawing the shape first and then hold down the Shift key, and then it will constrain to the square. So let's do a square about yay big. Yay big. Some of you may have noticed that your anchor point is right in the center of your composition window.
Yeah,
what's up with that, right? Wherever you draw this shape, it's going to drop the anchor point right in the middle of the composition window. I'm sure there's some logic behind that. I don't know what it is. But what we want to do is we want to make this go there. Now we can manually change where our anchor point is, but we're going to do it with a keyboard shortcut. So while that shape is still selected, if you hit Command, Option, Home. Command, Option, and then the Home key. Now the anchor point is in the center. We are still on our shape tool, on the rectangle tool, and we want to be able to move this around and do some stuff with it. So we want to select our selection tool. Right between the hand and home, we want to click back to that. That's the default tool that's selected when you launch After Effects. We're going to switch back to it. All right, and we're going to move our rectangle to the lower left corner of our comp. Try not to let it go off the screen, but don't leave it out in the middle of stuff. Get as close to that lower left corner as you can. All right, now we're going to duplicate this layer. So select the layer by clicking on its name in our comp timeline, and then you're going to hit Command D to make a copy of it. Command D for duplicate. You can also, I believe, choose layer. And is there a duplicate in here? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's in comp. Well, Command D makes a copy. Okay, now everybody again, watch my screen, don't do this. It made a copy of it. That means there's two stacked on top of each other, one right in front of the other one. If I click and drag on this, I want it to go directly above it. So as I'm dragging up, I'm going to hold on my Shift key and move it up. That's weird. My make sure your anchor point is still in the center of your rectangles. If not, select each rectangle and then hit Command Option Home again. Mine moved. That was very weird. Okay. So we have one at the bottom of our comp window and one just above the center line, both towards the left side of our comp. All right, before we get too much further, let's save this. So Command S, and then we're going to select the folder that we created, GRC 53250903, and the project is going to be called GRC 53250903 underscore 250903 underscore last name, first initial. If you were late this morning, we kind of had a discussion on the file naming conventions. You should always follow this format. All lowercase, no spaces, and make sure it's your last name and then your first initial, and separated by an underscore. All right, and then save. Thanks. All right, now we're going to do shift select or additive select. So we're going to select layer 2, shape layer 2, and I'm going to hold the shift key down and then select shape layer 1. So once again, here's what I did. I selected shape layer 2, hold the shift key down, and then selected shape layer 1. So both of those layers are selected. Now with both of those layers selected, I'm going to hit the P key, and that's going to show position only. So normally we have all of these options available to us, but if we just want to see one, we can hit the P key. I think you can also hit the T key for opacity. The T, I guess, stands for transparency. But P is the position. It's the X and Y location on our comp window of that object. And interestingly enough, when both layers are selected, hitting the P key does that for both layers that are selected. Kind of cool.
R is for rotation.
R is for rotation. Thank you. Now make sure your playhead is at the very beginning. If hit the J key a couple times, make sure it's locked over here to the 0 point. Playhead is at 0. And now I'm going to click the stopwatch, either one, and that will engage the stopwatch for both of them. And also, as you can see, create a keyframe at the current location of that playhead. And I'm going to drag my playhead out to about 2 seconds. And now I want you to, with your playhead at 2 seconds, grab one of these shapes. Remember, they're both selected. And I want you to drag to the right and then up like that. And when you do that, you will see two things. Number one, it automatically created 2 keyframes at this playhead position. And then we see the motion path that this object is taking. Now let's move our playhead forward another 2 seconds. So let's hit 4 seconds. And now we're going to go to the right and down. So we're just making a little hill. So let me do that again. So make sure your playhead is at the beginning. Make sure you've turned on the stopwatch so we can start keyframing. And then you're going to move the playhead to 2 seconds. And then you're going to drag these up and to the middle. And then you're going to move your playhead to 4 seconds. And you're going to drag them down and to the right. And then when you scrub the playhead, you can see it follows that motion path. Though it's not supernatural because we have this non-natural curve at the top. All right, now I'm going to zoom in here, and I want you to keep your eyes as best as you can, especially from the back of the room, and see all these little dots here. So this is called the tween, or the between the 2 keyframes. The speed and the velocity, which are kind of the same thing, of the movement of our object along this path is determined by these steps in time. If I grab this center keyframe and I slide it to the left, do you see how these redistribute? So more of the dots go to the right and less of the dots end up on the left. And conversely, this also sets my speed. So now when I play, that one goes very fast to start and then very slow on the back end. because it's having to jump those in between frames. And I can also do it on the back end of this guy. I can grab that keyframe and understand this keyframe was originally here, which allowed us to have the distribution of frames in between the keyframes. But when I moved this got redistributed. But understand, this is a point in time and space. Thank you. It is a point in space and also in time. And when we move this down here, further down forward in time, that means that we have a lot longer to get to this point than we do to get from here to there. This, we have just that little bit of number of frames. Here we have all of these frames to climb the mountain. So when I redistribute the frames that way, now it goes very slow to the top and then really fast. So I'd like you to try this just so you can see it in action. So let's grab your playhead and make sure nothing is selected, first of all. So how do I know if something's selected, Mr. C? Just like that. That is selected. See how we've got handles? We can see that dude there. I'm going to deselect. And now grab one of these keyframes. I would work with the bottom one. The top one's kind of our litmus test there. It's our control. So grab the center keyframe and slide it to the left and see how those frames redistribute. Hit your space bar to see the change in velocity. And then move that to the right. And see how now it's slower and then faster. And then when you're done playing with that, hit Command Z until that keyframe lands back in the middle. All right. Part 1 is done. Dun, dun, dun. Save, Command S. Part 2, keyframe interpolation. Ooh. So on the top layer, actually, yes, I changed my mind. I'm going to do the top layer, not the bottom layer. I want you to select all 3 keyframes on the top layer. So how do I do that, Mr. C? I will show you. So right here, I'm going to click on that keyframe. I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and I'm going to select that second keyframe, and then hold my Shift key down and select the third keyframe. So all 3 keyframes on the top layer are selected. And then I'm going to right click on any of those keyframes and I'm going to choose keyframe interpolation. This is one of those times where if you have fallen behind, please let me know so I can get you caught up. Okay, making a big jump here. So again, I selected all 3 keyframes by clicking one, holding the Shift key, clicking the second, holding the Shift key, clicking the third, and then right click, and I'm going to choose keyframe interpolation. Oh, I guess I got to choose the second middle one. Keyframe interpolation. We have never been here before. We will be here a bit today. The one we want to look at right now is spatial interpolation. This is how things move space-wise. I'm going to click this drop down, and you'll notice right now it's set to linear. And sure enough, if we look at that line, it is linear. Linear is a line, it's straight. And I want you to choose Auto Bezier. Auto Bezier creates handles for these keyframe points in space so you can reform the motion path without having to add additional keyframes. So click OK once you've chosen Auto Bezier for spatial interpolation. It's the middle one right here. Make sure this temporal interpolation is set to linear and the roving is locked to time. Spatial interpolation, now we've changed to Auto Bezier, and then we clicked OK. And as soon as I do that, you can see now my path is all curvy and stuff. Now if you preview your animation, you can see that when it hits that ridge, it's much smoother going over the top of that. And it's kind of hard to tell, but this first keyframe comes out of this, or the path comes out of this at a slight dip. And I can adjust that dip if I want to by clicking on that keyframe. And see this little dot right there? That's a handle. And I can actually reform that path. And depending on how you rotate and also pull away or push towards the keyframe point, you can adjust that curve. Now that dude's going all over the place. Whee! So Auto Bezier means that it keeps this motion through the keyframe point smooth. If we decide we want to change that middle one, don't do that. I'm just going to show you. From continuous Bezier to Bezier, I have the ability now to break that path and have it go like backwards if I wanted to, but at an angle. But we're not doing that. We're going to leave it at auto for right now. So I want you to right click, make sure nothing is selected. And then on this top one here, I want you to right click on that the middle keyframe and choose Keyframe Interpolation. And let's change this one from continuous Bezier to Bezier. So again, spatial interpolation was set to continuous, and we're going to just set it to Bezier. And then click OK. And so now I want you to do maybe something like this. Now you can adjust both of those handles. Make it something like that, like a little hill. I'll be right there. All right, now at the top of the menu up here, next to our rectangle tool, we have the pen tool. I want you to long press on the pen tool and choose the Convert Vertex tool. Now, if you've used this in Illustrator, you know exactly what this tool does. It changes, when you click on a point, it changes it from a curve to a vertex or a angle, which allows you to change Beziers. Now if you click and drag, it will always be a curve. So if you want to go back to linear and not the Bezier, just click with this tool here, and then you get that curve. You notice the Beziers are missing. Now that we saw the Beziers on the beginning and end keyframes. Okay, so the reason I show you that is that's a quick and easy way without having to go into frame interpolation. If you just want something smooth, if you click and drag with the Convert Vertex tool, it converts it to an auto Bezier, which is awesome. Okay, save. Just a little sidebar there. Okay, we're almost done. We're going to do the motion timing now. This is going to be step intensive. So if I lose you, please raise your hand and let me know. Okay. So I want you to right click on the center frame here on the top shape layer. Yes, the center keyframe on shape layer 2, the top shape layer, yeah. Right click and choose Keyframe Interpolation. Now for the temporal interpolation, it's a fancy way of saying time. Change it from linear to Bezier. And then click OK. And you'll notice that our icon, our keyframe icon, has changed. It now kind of looks like the Black Widow insignia. Yeah. Now nothing will visually change here because temporal means over time. This is a path. This is a visual thing. So the temporal change doesn't show up yet. But with that keyframe still selected, and let me just, everybody get that? Their keyframe looks like that? If not, raise your hand because this part won't work if not. We good? Okay. Now I'm going to click on my graph editor, which is this little tiny icon right towards the beginning of the timeline. And when I do that, now my timeline looks different. I've got this guy here. And this is showing me my speed over time. And why does it suddenly drop off? Well, because there's no more motion after that point. After that third keyframe, no more keyframes. So the motion stops. So this line here, which is mostly flat, if we want to, we can grab, whoops, and adjust these Beziers. And then you can see, just like we did before, where we moved the keyframe around, we now have a redistribution of our frames. And so when we have a compact collection of frames, this is faster than when the frames are spread out. The opposite is true. Wow, sorry. This is slower, this is faster because it has less frames to get across that point. But you'll notice that it starts off very wide, and as the path continues, these little frame dots get closer and closer together until they match those guys. So this is a velocity indicator. So we're going to go fast and then slowly catch up and then have a continuous speed on that end there. All because on the graph editor, I changed what that time looks like. I'll try moving some of these guys around here and see how it adjusts the distribution of these frames. This is interesting. So it starts off very slow and then speeds up and then goes to a normal speed. And you can change how these work here.
Those are the and they follow the same sequence.
One thing I should mention, this icon down here next to the eyeball, we've been here before, so yours should default to that. But if not, just click on that little icon there next to the eyeball and make sure Edit Speed Graph is selected. Otherwise, this won't make any sense. Does that work? Okay, yeah. Edit Speed Graph, because we want to edit the speed graph, not the values. Okay, I think that's probably good for right now.